the combination of this ignorance of what may be true, plus dire economic circumstances, come together to make people very vulnerable to traffickers. Now, where you have countries with political unrest or corruption in their infrastructure or weak infrastructure, combine that with widespread poverty, and you're going to get breeding grounds for international criminal networks, where networks of people traffic everything from drugs to guns to people, and as you'll see later, animals even. And the interesting thing about human trafficking is that cocaine can only be sold once by one person. You sell that cocaine and it's going up somebody's nose and it'll be gone. It may go through a number of people before it goes up somebody's nose, but then it's gone. Human trafficking, on the other hand, people can be sold over and over and over again. That human trafficking is humans are in the end become a commodity, and they're one of the only commodities that can be resold and used again, so that traffickers are realizing that there's an increased value to those people. So what I'd like you to think about is how solutions to trafficking, first of all, have to be global. We can't just address the problem in the United States. Closing borders is not something that's going to work. We're opening them all over the place for globalization, and we can't just close them as we see fit. Obviously, closing borders isn't working for drugs or guns, so we have to come up with another solution also for human trafficking. So one of the suggestions is that if trafficking is a global problem, then the solution must also be global. That joining together globally and also regionally coalitions of countries and NGOs to fight this problem together, both on a local level and on a global level, that we will be able to prevent, prosecute, prevent human trafficking, prosecute the traffickers, and protect victims and potential victims. Let's see. Prevention must focus on the countries that are sending people, the sort of countries that are pushing, if you will, and focusing. You'll see a lot of this in the Kempadu book, and you did some reading in the Kempadu book for this class, that we can't just focus on prosecuting people. Human trafficking is too lucrative, and our ability to punish is it's too weak. So one of the things that we can do is focus on the economic development in countries that are pushing people out, so that there will be less push and that the pull will be less attractive. Also emphasizing empowerment of women and girls who are often more victimized by poverty, more affected by poverty than their male counterparts. That economic development will prevent people from even considering sort of seeking out being smuggled, which often turns into sometimes turns into trafficking, or being vulnerable to traffickers in the first place. Also, when we're looking at the people who may be protecting victims or treating victims, that those people, social workers, for example, must really widen their focus from simply a local focus to a more national and global perspective, so that they are ready to deal with such issues as human trafficking. Let's see. A couple of things that I actually wanted to add that go along with all of that. There's a conference at UCLA about the dark side of globalization. And one of the things that they came up with were 4 conditions that were favorable to transnational crime, including human trafficking. The conditions are favorable to these crimes include, first, the poverty in source countries and their drive to alleviate that poverty. Second, the weakness of new democracies. Their focus was particularly on Eastern Europe, so how weak or strong that new government was. 3, open borders. And 4, a lack of appropriately educated law enforcement staff and a lack of cross-national cooperation. Now, for those of you who are looking to be law enforcement officers, you'll find that there's not a lot of training on human trafficking. When I teach this class in a classroom, I have a guest speaker come in who's actually, I believe he's a lieutenant at the Montclair State University Police Department. And he actually does training of law enforcement officers on human trafficking, but it's not common. You'll have to seek it out. So those of you who are interested in law enforcement, this is something that you probably won't get a lot of training on, or hopefully you will. You'll let us know, I hope. So let's see what else I wanted to talk about. I'd like you to, when you are posting on the discussion boards, I'd like you to do, I know the Milanovic article is kind of long, but I'd like you to read it as best you can and think about the ways in which globalization is good and bad. And I'd also like you to watch the Jacqueline Novagrant's video is only about 7.5 minutes long, so take a look at it. Think about how poverty is important to this issue of human trafficking. You know, a lot of the videos that you'll see are about human trafficking, sort of quick things on TV, are about freeing people. I don't know if any of you saw Indiana Jones. You know, in Indiana Jones, I don't remember which one it was, but he freed all these kids and they go running back to their villages, and oh, it's so exciting. There are news stories like that all the time. Somebody goes in and saves all these kids. What you have to think about, though, is freeing people just isn't enough. If globalization is creating this universe where people leave for a reason, where trafficking happens because people are vulnerable for important reasons, for poverty, for disenfranchisement, because there's such a gap between our rich and poor nations, that just freeing people isn't going to solve the problem. We have to get to the source of the problem and really focus on bettering the economic conditions in the source countries so that people are not interested in leaving when they hear about these options. Okay? So, make sure that you're reading that Milanovic article and also the Kempadu chapters. There's 3 of them. Pay particular attention to the difference between how Kempadu talks about this issue, or the authors in the Kempadu book talk about this issue, and how the Slave Next Door book talks about the issue. I'd like you to be thinking critically about the different perspectives on this. Okay? So, good job, everybody. Keep posting on the discussion boards. Keep thinking critically. And the next class, we are going to be reading about criminal networks and corrupt guardians. Everyone has to read Chapter 5 in The Slave Next Door. And then, according to your last name, you have to read one of 3 articles. All of them are available in the course documents section of Blackboard. So, get your reading. All right. Bye, everybody. Get shoveled out.